I don't individualize my content so I can individualize my care. G'day teacher geeks. Crossword puzzles. Some kids love them, some kids don't, but most kids, they enjoy them at least somewhat, and they're a really good way to start a lesson. In this video, I want to show you my favorite online crossword maker. I really like it for a number of reasons. I'm going to quickly show you the website. I'll put a link in the description. I'll give you a couple of tips about how I like to use it. And then afterwards, please indulge me. I'm going to rant a little bit about building blocks. So here is the crossword puzzle maker, Armored Penguin. I tried a few different crossword puzzle makers and I just like this one for its simplicity. I'm going to make yours about my recent unit studying with your smartphone. I'm talking about this a lot just simply because it's fresh in my brain. Author's name, description, I'm not going to bother about this, but you can if you like. I typically keep all of these settings the same, but you can change these to black or gray. Right, you can have a look at the settings here, but I typically don't even read those. I don't know what they're about. Then we just simply get down to here and you write the word and the clue. Now, you can see I've been making some recently. The one thing to be wary of with the word, just if you've got a double word, make sure there's no space. And I'm going to simply bring up my word list and copy and paste over. So you see here, I have my list of key terms for my studying with your smartphone. And I can just copy working memory, copy over the definition. Now this is where I see the benefit of having my key terms figured out at the beginning of the unit before I get into teaching, because it makes this sort of planning much easier. If I look over my unit plan here, this is my studying with my smartphone. You can see I keep things very bare bones in my unit plans. All of this information is for me, and of course I sell these unit plans for other IB psychology teachers, so I want to keep this very simplistic, no fluff, just what we need in the classroom to make it really clear what we're doing. And this is my lesson plan overview, right? 3 topics, key question for each, my lessons, the studies are really important in our course, and then my list of key terms here. So the studies and the key terms, really these are the building blocks that go into my course. So this is what I used then to make this list. Now, of course, all of this takes time, valuable time that we often don't have. But if you can, and this is why I am working on making my units, updating them about every 5 years. I'm thinking about a 5-year cycle is a good amount of time, because I have to strike that balance between keeping things updated and fresh and exciting for me, but also not burning myself out. And updating these units takes time. For me to plan one lesson takes about 3 or 4 hours, and then just for one, and that's when I've already written the content. To write and research and to write the content takes probably another 3 or 4 hours. You might be asking, how do I do that? I'm a part-time teacher. I had to go part-time because I couldn't have a wife, 3 kids, 4 businesses, and a full-time job as a teacher to make all of these unit plans. So that's what I had to do. Okay, I'm not going to let you, you don't have to watch me copy and paste this. I'm going to show you one. Here's one that I prepared earlier. Okay, so I've copy and pasted that over. It took about 2 minutes. And I'm just removing my spaces so that all looks okay, all my definitions, and I simply come down here. Now another reason I like this is I'm going to click make puzzle, is it gives you the option of solving it online. Let me just make this smaller so it's a bit easier to see. Here, okay, this is my puzzle, looks pretty good. I got to cross them down. Now I've got my answer key. Answer key is a PDF, and I can have the solve online link. This is what I really like. Now be very, very careful. Copy and paste that link, put it somewhere, because it doesn't really save unless you copy and paste that, and then it's hard to find it and hard to get it back. I have lost one before doing that. So copy and paste that, and then hit this back arrow straight away. Okay, you want to save it. So if I hit printable PDF, what I really like about this website as well is there's no, I've made heaps of these, and it's never asked me for logging in or upgrading or anything like that. And then we have it one page, nice crossword puzzle. Answer key PDF, so if I hit answer key PDF, you'll see all the answers will come up in blue. Okay, now the solving online is pretty cool. If I go to solve online, students can simply type in their answers, right? And then they hit check solution. Okay, and they'll see, and if it's red, they got it wrong. But let's see if I 11 across. I think it should come out the use of computers. That is cool. So if you are online teaching at the moment, this is a good option, something a bit different to do. Okay, so it comes up green if I got it right, red if I got it wrong. So students can self-assess this. So if you like, you can assign it for homework digitally as well. So I really like Almond Penguin. There it is. I think that's everything I wanted to say about the crossword puzzle. Very simple, straightforward consolidation activity. And now, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to get into a little bit of a rant. So I like that online crossword puzzle maker. You know, for me, it takes about 5 minutes to create, and I use it in the beginning of the unit and around the second or third lesson. And I tell students, look, you're not going to know all of these words because we're only just beginning. But I always do it at the end of the unit as well. So then I'm hoping students will get somewhat of a motivation or a confidence boost when they see, oh, yeah, I remember I didn't know this stuff and now I do. And that's where I want to talk about building blocks. One thing I like to do before I plan a unit, or while I'm planning a unit, is I write out a list of the key terms that I want students to know by the end of the unit. This is part of what I call building blocks, right? Key terms are just building blocks. They're little bits of information, little bits of knowledge that students need to know in order to do well. They're building blocks individually by themselves. They aren't that meaningful, but when we put them together, right, we start building with them. Now we're getting the bigger concept, the bigger understanding of what we're trying to do. For example, in my most recent unit, I'll talk about that. It's the first one that comes to mind. I'm doing a unit called Studying with Your Smartphone. And this is all about the ways that smartphones are influencing students' cognition, the technology is affecting their working memory and their memory. This I'm doing for a psychology course. Now, the working memory, that's a building block. Working memory, what is working memory? That's one of the key building blocks in that unit. If students don't comprehend and can't remember what working memory is, they won't be able to understand how technology, right, or things like nomophobia or anxiety influence working memory. They can't put the pieces together. And so the individual building blocks of information in our units are really important. Cognitive load, that's another one. That's another important building block. Now, how does cognitive load work with working memory? And so every lesson, we're adding these building blocks to our lessons, but it's not just about the understanding and reciting and recalling the individual bits of information. You see, that's where we went wrong in the 1950s, and that's where we've overcorrected in education recently. It used to be that it was just about individual building blocks, and you know the sage on the stage, that old idea of the teacher at the blackboard just spurting down facts for kids to memorize and regurgitate, right? Memorization, regurgitation, that was all about individual building blocks. And I feel we've overcorrected in education where we've said, okay, well, let's stop doing that. Let's stop teaching content because we had that and it didn't work and it wasn't meaningful and we were bored stupid. So let's just get the kids to choose what they want to learn. And I strongly disagree with that idea. Sometimes, in some places, yes, choice, right, at the right times, but we can't, I think we need to take control of our content. I select the building blocks for my units because I have the knowledge to choose the right ones. My students wouldn't know about working memory if it wasn't for me. They wouldn't know about cognitive load if it wasn't for me. They wouldn't know where to look. They wouldn't know where to find it. That's my role as a teacher. But understanding, I strongly believe in the power of cognitive load and working memory and how to understand how your smartphone influences those two things, right, and your ability to focus and concentrate, and then therefore why it might be a good thing to turn off your notifications when you study, or even because of a study that shows just having your smartphone on your desk will add to your cognitive load, which reduces your working memory, which reduces your ability to study. It's best to put your phone in another room. The students would have never come to that conclusion if I hadn't have done 10 hours of research before that lesson to find all the studies and to figure out all of that information to then come and teach to them. And that is where content is king, and I feel like we need to take back, at least, this is what my mission's about. I'm taking back control for me, making my units about my content, and then at the right times, allow students a choice to say, right, we've just learned all that stuff. There's something that you want to pursue a little bit further. Towards the end of the unit, the end of the semester, after they've got all of these building blocks, then they can ask more questions. So getting back to the idea of crossword puzzles and key terms, at the beginning of the unit, when I write down a list of my key terms and their definitions, it makes it super easy, really fast to be able to create things like crossword puzzles, to create individual cards with the word on it. Then we can play lots of different games. And having that carefully selected content, having those building blocks, having the list of key terms with their definitions at the beginning, it means it allows me to consolidate that at the start of each lesson with a range of different activities. And I've talked earlier about my lesson plan, the Chaser lesson plan, CHACER. The C in the beginning is consolidate. Memory happens through repetition, right? Rehearsal and creating neural networks through that rehearsal. And so we have to consolidate at the start of every lesson. We have to do these things regularly. And so that's where a crossword puzzle, I think, is a really simple, effective consolidation activity. I thought about this the other day about, you'll hear me, if you subscribe, follow me on this channel, and you'll hear me talk a lot about individualization. And I don't think that's a good thing in education. I think it's why teachers are burning out. I actually think it might be contributing to some of the anxiety and increased levels of depression when we think about students and resilience. That's a discussion for another day. But for right now, I thought to myself, I don't individualize my content so I can individualize my care. And that really struck home to me last week when I was working. I was up at 3 a.m. lesson planning every morning because I had to get these lessons ready for my classes that day. And a couple of weeks ago, I had students, a student who was visibly upset, come to class late, something had happened, and I thought to myself, I must check in with that student. And I never did because every day I was too stressed and too busy planning. And I was, had too many things in my mind, right? My cognitive load was overloading my working memory, and I couldn't go in and check in on that student. And it was only after the end of that unit, 2 weeks later, where we'd done all the planning, and then I could sort of breathe, and I knew that, okay, that was a successful unit. Kids have done the assessments. I feel like I did a good job teaching. Then I just had a quiet word to the student after class and said, hey, how are you doing? I wanted to check in on you. I'm here, if you need someone to talk to. And that really reminded me of why, if we want to do the best thing for our students, we should individualize our care. But we need to take control of our content. Because if we're too busy lesson planning, if we're too busy continually changing what we're doing year after year, day after day, because we're always saying to students, what do you want to do today? And we don't take control of that, then we're not going to have the energy or the empathy to be there for the students when they need us. And that is where I think I actually thought the other day I might write a book called The Joys of the Industrialized Education. I really love the industrialized model of education. I'm open to seeing the replacement. I'm open to seeing a school do it different and working a school that does it different. That's great. I haven't seen it yet though. And so what I see is solutions that don't work in the model that we're currently confined in. So we have these practical realities that we work in, like we still work through K till 12. We still have an hour for every subject and the kids go class to class. We still have to do grades and assignments and assessments, but yet then we get these wishy-washy, airy-fairy ideas about how it all needs to be different for every kid, but we're still stuck in those same confines. Teachers aren't parents. That if you want to provide the individual wants and needs for a kid and we're to that level that is becoming expected of us, ask the parents. We're not parents. We have 30 kids a lesson sometimes. If we have 4 or 5 lessons, you're looking at over 100 kids a day. If you can do it, go for it. But if you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling stressed, if you are constantly changing things because you're constantly asking the students what do they want to do, consider this. Consider just trusting yourself, your own judgment. This is what I've done, and it's made the world of difference to me and my stress levels and my love of teaching. This is why I'm encouraging you to do this. Take back control and think, what do I want to teach? What do I think these students should know from my course? And get to the why. And that's where you can get the real meaning. So as opposed to looking at the curriculum, which has become a copy of a copy of a copy, just think, what is the why behind this? For example, my first unit on the technology and cognition, which I had to do for the IB psychology course, It was okay. It had some interesting things. It was a bit higgledy-piggledy. We did some things about texting while you're driving and virtual reality for people with PTSD. It checked the boxes, but it didn't have the meaning behind it that this new one that I did, which I had this flurry of inspiration of studying with your smartphone. 95% of students have a smartphone. I think it's probably more. How many of them study with it? How many of them want to study better, be more focused? And so then I thought, all right, let's harness it through that theme. And that's the thematic part of my thematic model. So my point being is, take back control of the building blocks. Think to yourself, what is it that I want students to know? And once you have these figured out in your course, you know what they are lesson after lesson. You can build on them. You can create awesome, interesting activities. You'll engage, students will get engaged just by, look at Kahoot. You could have a Kahoot on country capitals. You could have the most meaningless, irrelevant facts, but if you know there's a fun game with a quiz involved at the end, then you'll have engaged students. Now, is that going to lead to a meaningful education? No, right? But you're going to have engaged, happy, enthusiastic students. Now, imagine if you couple that with meaningful content, meaningful building blocks, which are going to build to a bigger, deeper understanding, which is going to be useful for their real lives. That is what school is about. So, crossword puzzles, I digress. This is how I'm going to structure these videos from now on. I like to rant. I like to talk teaching. I don't really have many people to talk to it about, except my camera here at 4:30 in the morning. So I'm going to give the practical activity first, and then if you'll indulge me, you'll hear me rant and rave about the philosophy behind the practice at the end. Because I get it. Teachers are busy. We want and I understand, and I'm on your side completely. I want the practical stuff first, and then I'll tune out when the pedagogy comes in later. The best PD I ever had was from Paul Guinness, who did exactly that. It was 90% practical ideas that we could use in the classroom, and then at the end, he would just drop in a little bit of theory. So that is the model I'm going to try to work with these videos. Thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful. Please leave a comment if you agree or disagree. I want to start the dialogue about this. My mission is to help teachers and teacher burnout. I want to help. I want to share the ideas that I do, that I work, that have made me fall in love with teaching again and have a new feeling of drive and mission and purpose. So please, and different ideas, activities. I'm a teacher geek. I love talking teaching. So please leave a comment. Thank you very much. Cheers.